Welcome, I'm Rogers Anderson, Williamson County's mayor. And as we travel around Williamson County and we try to meet the different departments, supervisors, and those outside organization branches that are so paramount to the success of our county. Today we have a familiar face in Matt Largen, who wears a hat of many styles, and apparently he's lost his razor blade here lately. But thanks for being with us, Matt.
You're welcome. It only took me 2 years to grow this.
You're still a young boy growing up, right?
Yes, no doubt, no doubt.
Let's talk a little bit about Matt Largen, where you came from. How did you get involved in economic development and chamber-type businesses? Sure. And many people may actually remember you a few years back when you were under the fold of government, but not so anymore.
Right. No, that's exactly right. And you know, to that point, I think that you recognize, whether it's tourism or economic development, certainly government plays a role, but the private sector is the one that really helped drive that process. So it was your leadership that allowed us to do what we're doing now, to have both the private and public sector involved. So I will celebrate my 15th year in Middle Tennessee, which is pretty amazing. This is almost the longest place I've ever lived. I grew up in Arkansas. I lived there for 18 years and then through college. Went to graduate school in New Hampshire, came back to Arkansas, lived in Little Rock for about 5 years, and then moved to Middle Tennessee 15 years ago, and have been working in Williamson County 8 of those 15 years.
I know that along the way, you were fortunate enough to find a lady that really set you on the path and made you who you are, and you got 2 fine children. You better touch on that.
Yeah, no, that's great. Rachel and Emily, my 2 great kids, they're 11 and 9 years old now.
It's hard to believe.
It is hard to believe. It is really hard to believe. My youngest is a gymnast. My oldest is an actress, and I mean that in the positive sense. So it's been really great to see them grow up, and I think it's really fun now because I can talk about what my job is, what it means to the community,
sure,
and connect those things with the kids. I remember when we were working in partnership with a lot of different organizations for the British Airways flight, I said, all right, kids, if we get this, I'm going to take you to Europe. And they knew before anybody else did. They saw it leak like everybody else did in the Tennessee a few days before. But they really sort of understood, okay, this is what Daddy does, and this is what it means for Middle Tennessee.
Let's go to 40,000 feet.
Okay.
Let's look at Williamson County 8 to 10 years ago when you came to Middle Tennessee area, specifically Williamson County in the Middle Tennessee area, because we can't talk about the successes of Williamson County without the successes of the entire region.
Sure, absolutely.
It's hand in hand.
Yep.
And where we are today is compared to a few years ago. And what were some of those milestones along the way that really changed who we are and what we are? Not that it's all good or not that it's all bad.
And every change presents success. It's a set of challenges, right? No matter where you head as an economy, you're going to have challenges. I think we're lucky, though, we've got the right kind of challenges. Our challenges are related to growth and traffic, and I can promise you there are 90-plus other counties in Tennessee that would love to have the set of problems that we have in Williamson County. So I think that's important for us always to be aware of that. But secondly, at least in my tenure here, I think Nissan changed everything. I think you can look at Williamson County before and after Nissan, and you can see the vast difference it made in our community from an employment standpoint, from a philanthropic standpoint, and then what it means to have global companies like Mars and Nissan and the effect it has in our community from a diversity standpoint. We now reflect what we see across the globe much more than we've ever been because of the diversity those companies bring to Williamson County, which is a great thing as we continue to compete for the kind of companies that help bring careers, not just jobs, to our community.
So when you're talking in the community, and you're very high profile in our community with the business community and the general population at large, there was a period of time that economic development was a team of 2-3 people.
Yeah.
And those were in those early days. But there was vision out there to be able to bring Williamson County up and help create, not that government creates jobs, but that we can help be a catalyst or create that model of connectivity
Yep.
from the government to the private side to the public side. Why is that all important? So everybody, Matt, knows that Williamson County has got one of the premier school systems, and that's a tip of the hat to the leadership we've currently got in Dr. Looney and to those prior leaders before him to get us to, it's like
That's
a football coach. You and I argue all the time. You've been Virginia Tech, me being Knoxville, UT, and our teddy bear reflects that in the back.
I see that.
But you know, at each step of the way in a coach's life or an institution, you want to build off the successes, not go the other way like some things have happened recently.
And I would use the term brick by brick, but I probably shouldn't do that.
Probably.
Probably not. But no, I mean, but you're exactly right. I say that all the time. Where we are as a community didn't happen by accident, and it didn't happen overnight. And so we, I think, have to be very aware and very thankful to the great leaders of our community who decades ago said, and you were one of them, we're going to have the best school system in the state, and everything builds off that. And that theory becomes more true every day because economic development these days is about talent recruitment. You recruit the talent, the company follows. We have to prove to the companies recruiting that you can find the talent here. The talent's drawn here by the schools, and that's critical. And you said catalyst. You're exactly right. Government does not create a single job. We create the environment that allows people to come in and risk capital and create jobs. So we play an important catalytic role, but then it's up to the private sector who we invite in to really make the difference in hiring employees and raising wages for our friends, family, and neighbors.
So help me to convince the general public out there, our unemployment is below the radar.
Oh yeah, I think it's 3.1 or something, maybe even less than 2% now.
Almost anybody that wants a job can find a job.
Right.
Now, we're not talking about pay. Everyone would argue, yes, there's always those jobs at the fast food restaurant or at the local grocery store, but those go into your economy base.
Sure.
So help me to convince the general population at large when that next great company knocks on our door and you're talking to them, or your team, which we got to give a shout out to all of your people that work so diligently behind the scene to pull these things off, or help sell our community. Why are we having to work so hard to get these companies to come to Middle Tennessee? And why is it important that they settled in Williamson County?
I think that's a great point. First of all, you're right. I am blessed to work with a great group of people in Williamson, Inc. who just are so dedicated to our community and are doing this for the right reasons. There's no way we'd be successful as we were if it weren't for the people. And I don't even say behind the scenes. They're out in front all the time, and they do a fantastic job. So you're right about that. Yeah, this is a challenge. And, you know, I noticed this when companies will come or relocate to town, and you look at neighborhood discussion groups, and the first thing they do is complain about traffic and the people they bring in. And I say a couple of things. First of all, take a step back. Remember where we were just a few years ago.
Right.
There will be another recession. It will happen. It will be difficult for, again, our friends, family, and neighbors. So when you bring companies, especially corporate headquarters, who are certainly not recession proof, but they're more recession resistant because this is where they make decisions. It's a hedge against the next recession by the fact this is where their corporate decisions come from. So that's important. You want innovators and decision makers in your community. Secondly, I'd say you're exactly right. Our unemployment rate's low, but it doesn't mean that there still aren't people in our community that are underemployed. And here's another thing when it comes to growth and traffic and congestion. Williamson County is an employment center. So if we can bring more companies to this employment center, people don't have to commute to Nashville. They don't have to commute to Rutherford County. They can find a job in their very own backyard. And you can see a reduction in traffic. And you see it already. I-65 has as many people commuting in and out both times of the day, in the morning and rush hours, the morning and afternoon. So I would say, those are the reasons why we want companies here. And then it's the jobs that they bring, it's the wealth that they bring, and it's the philanthropy they bring to our community. Just look at what Jackson National does, and Mars does, and Nissan does. And I would say those are all fairly recent relocations. At what point would you have closed the door and told those companies no?
So as you kind of look into your crystal ball and you look at Williamson County and where we are today, I think there's more collaboration between our cities and our county, and we're all distinct and individual. But when your team members, when you're out there and you're talking to an individual potential company coming to town, that's important. But that's only about, I'm going to use a percentage here, 25%.
Sure, yeah.
The real meat and potatoes, we say, that we put on our plate is those existing businesses that live in our community, those Tractor Supplies,
Right.
those organizations that have been here.
That brought us to the dance.
Brought
as
us
you
to the
say,
dance.
Sure. Now, I think that's really important. Economic development is kind of a misunderstood perception. It's just whoever writes the biggest check gets the company. We know that's certainly not the case, and that's definitely not our model. That's not how we do things. We are focused on fundamentals. That leads to job growth, of really strong jobs. But we know it's about 80 to 90% of our job growth comes from our existing companies. And that's why this effort around having a public-private partnership and having economic development as part of the Chamber of Commerce really matters, because it's not just the financial support of your private sector, it's also the support internally and having those connections with those companies that are willing to be help you recruit the next company, that are willing to invest in your community. That's where we've seen the great benefit. So for us, we have more people dedicated to our existing companies than we do recruiting companies from outside the area.
Let's shift the focus just a little bit. Why is it important that we work with our partners in Davidson County and Rutherford County and Wilson County and
Sure.
how many more names I could name? Why is it important? We want to compete.
Right.
We want the big orange to go against the big red. We want the different schools to compete on a Saturday or whatever
Sure.
they play,
Right.
and we want to win.
Right.
But why is it important that we all
Yeah.
learn to get along in the sand pile together?
That's a great point. I think you started the conversation by saying our success is ultimately tied to Nashville and Nashville region success. So we start out there, and it's really interesting. There was a staff retreat that I went on several years ago when I was at the Nashville Chamber of Commerce, and our facilitator drew this funnel, and he talked about this funnel of economic development. And so in the different stages of working a project, a relocation or expansion, most of that time, you're actually working together. You're working together to market your community. You're working together to go out to New York or Chicago or San Francisco and sell the region. You're working to get people interested as the region. You're working to get them enthusiastic. You know, Davidson County can tout the great schools in Williamson County. We can tout the Nashville Predators in Davidson County and some of those amenities they bring to the area. There's only a small portion when you're negotiating that there is that direct competition, but at the end of the day, more jobs to the region means more economic opportunities for everybody. So you're growing the entire pie. And the beauty of the Nashville region is every county brings a different asset to our community. If you're a manufacturer, Rutherford County is a great option for you. If you're in distribution, Wilson County is a great option for you. If you're looking for an urban environment or a skyscraper like Phillips was, Nashville is a great opportunity. If you're looking for a big corporate campus with great schools, Williamson County is a great opportunity. So we're lucky that we work so well as a region, and the results are a direct result. The economics are a direct result of that.
One of the things that you've done in your career, particularly in the last few years, is bring the relationship of the corporate world to the table. No question, a game changer. And in the last several years, the organization of Williamson Inc., which is the parent name of where you actually are employed, is you put a tremendous amount of energy and time into working with our number one partner in schools. Why is that important?
Right. So
Why go to Fairview?
right.
Why go to any of our schools and set these programs up?
I think the partnership we have with our school system, both Franklin Special, Williamson County, and starting to be some of our private schools, is better than any relationship I've ever seen with the Chamber of Commerce. And it's for one simple reason. Memphis, this is economic asset for FedEx is their airport. Savannah, Georgia's economic asset for their companies is their deep water port for their distribution companies. our economic asset is our school system. Everything rises and falls with the strength of our school system. So one, it's incredibly important. Secondly, I think we owe it to the students in Williamson County Schools to help fill out one of Dr. Looney's R's relevancy by getting them involved and engaged at a young level with their schools. I mentioned earlier talking to my kids about my job and what I do. I want that opportunity for everybody in Williamson County Schools, whether they're parents there that have connections or not to the business community. I want those businesses talking to kids as young as age as possible about the skills they're learning in school and why that matters. My kids and I talk all the time about math, and why does math matter? They're math kids, so they get it, but it's computational skills, it's critical thinking that companies say they want. So for us to create these partnerships like the drone program at Nolensville High, like the autonomous vehicle driving program with MIT at Franklin High and Independence High, those kind of things really matter. One, as we recruit companies from outside the area, they see what we're doing with the schools, and they see where their executive kids would go. But more than that, it's for the kids in the system, so that when they get out of school, they have an advantage that other kids don't have because they've been exposed at an early age to our really strong, vibrant business community.
I only have personal experience. I cannot speak with surety of any kind of factual data, but I believe in the last 3 to 5 years, we've had more children, that I can prove, to graduate from our high schools and go away to continuing education. I also am beginning to see, by virtue of my 3 children, and 2 of them coming back home to raise their family, to go to work here. I think we're going to see more of that, where your children are having an opportunity to go.
That's a great point.
And they will go away to Arkansas and New Hampshire and wherever they want to go to school. But a lot of those kids now are coming back to our community to settle in and say, I want to raise my family here.
And that's a great point, and I should have addressed earlier when you said, why does it matter we attract the next company? That's why it matters. It matters because now there's a career opportunity for your child and your grandchild. They don't have to go to Atlanta or Charlotte or New York or Chicago. They can do that right here in Williamson County. So it does, generations build on generations, build on generations. I remember we took a trip last year to Denver. And on one of the visits to plan the trip, I remember going to that same high school we went to, Rock Canyon, and talking to the students there. And I asked them, where are you going to college and where you want to live? All of them looked at colleges outside of Denver. All of them said, I want to come right back to Denver.
And some of that may be because they're familiar with the area.
Sure.
I'm speaking now to my children who are in their mid-30s, approaching the milestone of 40, one of them, and which I enjoy teasing him about. But all of a sudden, it's important for them that they have the same opportunities that they have.
Absolutely.
And all of us as parents, for most of us, we want better, not more, not
That's right.
but better.
And that's
opportunity.
And that's exactly what we talk about strategic growth. It's not growth for growth's sake. It's attracting the kind of companies that allow people to have career opportunities where they can locate here, raise a family here, move up in their career here. And I saw this in Arkansas. I mean, Little Rock, to a degree, you get to a certain point, and if you're not working for Stevens or Dillard's or used to be Alltel, where do you go? Well, you probably go to a Nashville, you go to Atlanta. We are so lucky here that's not the case. There's so many great companies in Williamson County and Middle Tennessee where you could work your entire career, move up without leaving the region.
Put your other hat on.
Which one?
The one I'm about to ask you.
Okay.
You may have to pat yourself on the back a little bit.
Okay.
I know you don't do that. Recently, within the last 60 days, a major announcement occurred that we're going to have a direct flight. You alluded to it.
Yeah.
And I also know behind the scenes that you were very, very involved in working through this detail. Why does that matter?
Yeah.
An airport transportation hub in Nashville, Tennessee, why does that matter to Williamson County?
And I'll say, I was lucky enough to be part of a much larger regional coalition that played a role. And it goes back to you don't ever accomplish something alone, ever. And this was a great opportunity of us having the chance to get involved. And then, we talked about it earlier, being able to bring some of the companies in Williamson County into the conversation. And I will forever be grateful to Nissan and Acadia Healthcare for their executives taking time out of their schedule to have those direct conversations with the woman who was making that decision. And again, that wouldn't happen if we didn't have that public-private partnership for economic development. So that matters. Having that nonstop flight matters a great deal. One, from an economic development standpoint, it gets us on lists we weren't able to get on. So we can compete with a Dallas or Atlanta or Chicago who has those kind of flights. That's important. But also, it's important to three groups in our community: our passport-holding residents, our global business, which will probably end up attracting more investment from our existing employers, and third, our churches who do mission work. And I know specifically at Rolling Hills, and Justice and Mercy International is the nonprofit that does work across the globe, a lot in Moldova and Europe. They were thrilled this flight was going to happen because all of a sudden their travel time is cut down in half. So that's just one small example. And we know there are a lot of great mission work happening out of Williamson County. So that's why that flight is going to matter. And the success of the flight is really important. So it's one thing to get it, as you know, it's another thing to keep it. So we're working hard to let our existing companies know, hey, take this flight. We want this flight to stick around because this is an economic game changer for us.
Wipe the slate clean. Take me out 10 years from now. It's, what is that, 2018, 2028?
2028.
Yeah,
Gosh, wow.
Let's just say
Yeah.
2030. I'll give you,
2030, okay.
12 years.
All right.
And people may want to write this down. Where will Williamson County be then?
Is this the time to give the disclaimer that all my opinions are my own and don't make
You can
investment
make all the
decisions? Don't make
opinions you
investment
want,
decisions
but
based on
you
what Matt
still-
Largen says?
You're like I am. You're going to be saddled with what happens, be it good or be it bad.
That's right, that's right. Yeah, you know, I think, and I've always said this, that as long as we keep the fundamentals and focus on the fundamentals and don't get caught up in some of the fads, schools, crime, public safety, housing amenities, other amenities, you know, a great transportation network, everything that makes this community special, maintaining our character, making sure there's great tourism assets, making sure that we continue to put the emphasis on saving our historic sites. I think we're going to be in great shape. You know, what happens nationally and globally, certainly we obviously can't control, but we'll play a role in what happens here. But as long as the fundamentals are in place and our economy continues to grow, we'll have economic opportunities. So I see 12 years from now, I see the 65 corridor continuing to develop from a corporate office standpoint. And you'll have corporate offices close to where people live because people want to have that connectivity piece. So the Envision Franklin plan that imagines, you know, Berry Farms, we'll see more of those. And I think that's a great thing. It will cut down on traffic because people will live close to where they work. So I think you see Berry Farms build out, you see Spring Hill build out, all within the next 10 to 15 years.
So what do we tell our corporate sponsors, your supporters, the people that sit on your boards, about how important the continuing funding of public education is?
Yeah, it's the single most important thing we do. And I say this too, you know, I used this example earlier with Memphis's airport and Savannah's port. FedEx insists Memphis invests and continues to invest in that airport. Savannah insists, the companies insist Savannah continues to invest in that Deepwater port. Our companies ought to and do insist we continue to advocate for fully funded education, which a big part of the long-term solution is the upcoming election for the school sales tax. And it's the only opportunity from a long-term standpoint we have to spread that burden to people who don't live in Williamson County. We estimate 28% of the sales tax collected in our community comes from people outside the community. And this vote on February 6th is the only chance people from the outside the community have to contribute to the success of our schools, to make sure the schools are built, they're renovated, and we don't have overcrowding with more portables in our community.
And if you look at the numbers in the 4 minutes that we've got left, all numbers are pointing, according to Dr. Looney and the school board, that we're at about 38,000 students today. We're going to be at 50,000 students in about 10 to 12 years, give or take a period of time. You're almost increasing a complete third
Yeah.
A third.
Right.
If something's 36,000 and we're going to raise it to 12 additional people, that's a third.
Yeah.
We were incorporated in 1799. We've had this growth occurring since the late 80s. And all of a sudden, in a 10-year snapshot of time, we're going to grow a third that took us 200 years to get to that point.
Yeah.
It is about how do we fund these things. And oh, by the way, there are a lot of people that live here that do not have children. We acknowledge that.
Sure.
But your property values.
I was going to say, they have just as big a stake in this as anybody else, because their property values are tied to the school system.
Same thing. We love private schools.
Yeah, sure.
That has no barrier, but public education rises the level of all private schools, home schools, academic standards for all of our children.
That's right. It's part of an ecosystem, right? The homeschoolers, the private schools, and our public schools make up an entire education ecosystem that is incredibly well balanced and again, is our economic foundation for our community.
And a large base of our viewing audience are those people that are, excuse me, would not have children, but they're the ones that go and vote.
Sure.
They're the ones who are going to watch this show and say, but I'm asking to raise 50 cents on $100.
Right.
Is that important to me? As a senior, what do I get out of it? As a grandparent, I know what I get out of it.
Right, sure. Right.
But when I look at that population, we have many, many programs out there to offset this. But our standard of living in Williamson County or the Middle Tennessee area compared to Charlotte and Dallas and some of these others is phenomenal.
Right.
When you look at it, everything being 100%, we're not at 100% compared to a lot of those places.
No, you're exactly right. And again, I think it goes back to the property values in Williamson County are strong because our economy is strong. Our economy is strong because our school system is strong. If our school system goes down, so does our economy. And you know, we talked about earlier about this notion of competition, and there are counties in Middle Tennessee that are desperate for their own version of Cool Springs. If that happens,
and that's just a business district.
That's right. It is, right. But if and when that happens, those people who commute in from other places will stay home. And then, you know, that's competition for us. So I think we've always got to make sure that we fully fund and support the education foundation, and that's our schools. So for people who are watching this who don't have schools in the system, this matters just as much to you because it's all about your property values.
Got about 1 minute. I probably overlooked something that you would like to get out here on the table for people to know. Your time.
Sure. You know, I think what's really important, so the organization you mentioned that I work for, Williamson, Inc., turned 5 years old this last year. And I said earlier, we have got a fantastic team. We are focused on helping grow the economy of Williamson County, which we talked a lot about today, but we're also focused on growing our members' businesses. Those are two things that we do. So I'd encourage people to get involved, get engaged with Williamson, Inc. If you're not a member, become a member. Come to one of our events, see what we're about. Our job is to be the catalyst for spontaneous capitalism. So if you're a small business owner, come and join us. We have at least one major event a month. We'd love to have you part of our organization to help really grow this economy in a strategic way, and help grow your business too.
Matt Largen, the CEO, a good man, a person you can trust. He's in your community. He lives here. His children go to school here, and he tells it like it is, and I like that most of the time. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks,
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Have a good day as we travel around the county. We'll bring some more important people to our community right here at this table. Look forward to seeing you.